If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. As many of you know, I spent over 40 years in the therapy office listening to people bring some pretty difficult stories. At the top of the list are stories of abuse that individuals have had to endure from narcissistic individuals who can be emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically abusive. They want to strip you of who you are. They want to fill you with who they are. If you've been exposed to something like that, particularly over a period of time, and this could be in your deep history or your adult life or people that you've worked with or extended family or other kind of scenarios, there are two things that we can say with pretty strong certainty. One is you're going to be wounded by that individual. In other words, you're going to carry a certain number of scars, if you will, on the inside. And then number two, those wounds and those scars are not going to disappear overnight. They tend to be very slow in going away. Now, you can make some strong progress, but it's going to be something that you're going to have to be patient with yourself on. It'll take some time, but it can be done. My heart goes out to you if this is something that you had to put up with. Now, the first thing I want to do as we get into our discussion here today is I want to kind of go through some of the mindset and some of the tactics that these individuals use as they put their abuse onto you. Sometimes you walk away thinking, am I making this stuff up, or can my own perceptions be trusted, because they can cause you to feel so uncertain about yourself. That's their gaslighting, by the way. First and foremost, abusive narcissists, their number one goal is to establish not just control, but a power differential. They want there to be no question at all about who's in charge, and it's not you. And so they can come on very strong, very overbearing, and they'll remind you over and over, you are not to be trusted with major decisions. I do the thinking around here. Now, beyond that, they'll bring much criticism toward you. I mean, you've probably just felt like, I can't do anything right. And they'll pepper you with things that you've done wrong, whether it's strong, a little bit of nitpicking or strong condemnation of decisions you've made. Their anger is just one false move away from being triggered. If you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or give the wrong look, here it comes. And sometimes it can be very harsh. Sometimes it can be very threatening, and it can be very painful on many different levels. In addition, the narcissist tends to use a lot of projection and displacement. They see in you what they they don't want to admit about themselves, and they also tend to displace onto you some of their unfinished business from their pitiable life that they haven't come to terms with. And as a result, they have a real strong defensive structure. Projection and displacement are two of those defense mechanisms. In addition, speaking of defense mechanisms, they tend to use a lot of denial and rationalization. I'm not the problem, you are. None of my difficulties would happen if it weren't for you, those kind of statements. Now, on top of it, these people will also use a lot of triangulation. And when we think triangulation, think of you have two people, but then we're going to bring in a third person. The narcissist likes to work other people against you. That's triangulation. They want others to disbelieve in you. They want to, sometimes they'll go to others and say, you have no idea how difficult this person is. And so they try to bring you down to other individuals. It's their way of trying to isolate you and trying to keep you away from having or developing any kind of allies away from them. They want to be that ultimate power source. In addition, they will hold you in contempt, and sometimes for the smallest of things. When I say hold you in contempt, they have feelings of disdain. You just so disgust me, those kind of things. And you're thinking, what did I do? Sometimes you say, all I have to do is show up and you're going to be mad and you're going to hold a grudge against me for who knows what. In addition to that, then their energies towards you are very inconsistent. Sometimes they can be very nice and try to butter you up, but then beyond that, it's like, well, it only lasts for a period of time, and just when you're starting to feel okay, then the bottom falls out, and you wind up just feeling hurt all over again. By the way, we have a word for that, or a term for that. That's called intermittent reinforcement. You don't quite know when the boom is going to come. It's just going to show up, but it's consistently inconsistent at times. Now, when you've had this kind of treatment coming from that narcissist toward you, there are all sorts of lingering symptoms that can come along with that. Let's run through some of those. And as I go through these, I want you to kind of run through in your own mind a little bit of a checklist. How many of these apply to you? Now, number one at the top of the list, if you've been abused by that narcissist, you're probably going to have some trust issues. In other words, you can be hypervigilant, wondering, well, who's going to be the next person that's going to mess me over? Who's going to be the next person that tries to take me down? It's happened to me once. Why wouldn't it happen to me again? In addition, you can develop what I refer to, and this is a Les Carterism, what I refer to as assumed hostility. And by that, I mean you can have a certain built-in pessimism. You can be with some individuals, and they can seem very nice, other than the abusive person, and you can think, well, I don't know when it's going to happen, but something negative is going to happen. It always does. And so you can carry some of your assumptions toward other individuals, and you can assume a certain bit of negativity before it even has a chance to happen. That's part of that trust issue. In addition, there are times when you might overinterpret someone else's negative expressions. For example, if they're saying, I've had such a difficult day today, you might think, are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? And so, or you're criticizing me, aren't you? Because you can be so edgy and touchy with regard to that. On top of that, you feel the need sometimes to over-justify who you are. You can over-explain, which then this is your way of saying, I'm not really at peace within myself, so I'm going to try to make myself sound better than is really warranted or even necessary. Sometimes you'll just simply say what you feel other individuals want to hear. We call that shape-shifting, or we call that the chameleon effect. You learn how to read the room. Back with the abuser. Is the abuser in a good mood today or not? And what do I have to say that's going to keep them off my back? And you can carry that habit elsewhere beyond that person. In addition, there are times when the after effect is your anger can become triggered too easily. And somebody can say something and you're so touchy, it's like you have a sore, and just all you have to do is touch it, and then it just gets triggered very strong. Sometimes your need for control is actually too strong. It's like, I've been controlled before and I am not going to let anybody else do it, so now it's my turn to be in control. Other times, one of the symptoms that can be there as part of your having been abused is you can have some experimental self-harming behavior. You may have heard of people who do cutting on themselves, or it may be that they go into substance or alcohol abuse. Maybe they can just have a lot of belligerent behavior where they just make enemies way too quickly. They can sabotage positive relationships. And what you see here is these are individuals that wind up having some real struggles with trying to find boundaries. They tend to be very blurry. Sometimes you just don't have any boundaries. Sometimes they have too strong of boundaries. Sometimes an individual in the aftermath of abuse can go through what we call dissociation experiences. And by that, you kind of blank out, or you have problems with your memory or problems with your perceptions. You even wonder, who am I? And what's going on inside of me? You have a major sense of detachment from others and sometimes from within yourself. Many times you walk away from the abuse needing very strong assurance from other individuals. I recall talking to one guy, and it's like whenever he would say something, he might say, does that make sense to you? And it's like, you don't have to keep asking me that. And he wasn't even aware that he was saying that. Or other times you can carry what I call the trash can effect. With it's the sour emotion that's there because of suppressing your emotion. Think of putting trash in a trash sack and then nobody takes the trash out. It just gets sour on the inside. Now, you can get beyond this kind of abuse. I hope you hear that, and I hope you hear that from the bottom of my heart. It's going to require you to have a certain amount of awareness of that person, who they are, and where they're coming from, and about what your better alternatives are. You're going to need to learn how to gain strength, not from the outside world, but from the inside out. Now, there's one enormous insight that I hope that you can carry with you, and that is any person who shows ongoing disregard for you has no right to establish your identity. Did you hear that? Any person that shows no regard for who you are has lost the right to establish your identity. Let's take that person out of front and center. They want to be there, but that's not their position, and you don't need to offer any kind of loyalty to them whatsoever. I'm hoping that you can learn to become objective about your own emotions. What's the meaning of my anger, my fears, my guilt? Because the more you understand who you are and what your game plans are going to be there, you can move forward, and that's what therapy is all about. You want to learn how to disconnect from the abuser, have a certain objectivity about their own demons that they're not coming to terms with, and realize I can't let that person have any kind of final say in my life. You want to learn how to define your own sense of normal. What are your preferences, your priorities, the validity of the emotions that you have. You want to stop beating yourself up. You're flawed. Okay, you're flawed. Like the rest of it, does that mean you're an unworthy person, or does that mean that you have room to grow and you want to learn how to adjust your thinking about that? I'm hoping you can find someone that you can trust, whether it's a close friend or a support group or a therapist. And many times you do need a therapist that'll help you out. And you certainly want to eliminate your own self-sabotaging behaviors. Now, I know I'm kind of giving you the broad overview, and it may be that you're going to need somebody that can help you work it out. But just know the goal, the goal of the narcissistic abuser is to make you uncertain about your worthiness. They want to take over your thinking for them. But I'm hoping you can dedicate yourself to learning the principles here that we have on Team Healthy: dignity, respect, and civility. Dignity is your birthright, and anyone who tries to take away your dignity is a thief. And I hope that this video gives you some good things to think about, and if you have been on the receiving end of this, again, my heart goes out to you. Hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep more videos coming towards you. If you do have a need for therapy, I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below that will take you to their website. It's an online resource. We found it to be very effective. You can go through and answer some questions. There's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you can choose from, and it would be so nice for someone to say, yes, we can get through this. I want to help you out. I want to know you through and through, and more importantly, I want you to know yourself through and through. As the need is there, please get the help. Now, as I've been retired from my therapy practice, I've put together courses, and these courses each has at least 25 teaching videos. Each video has a written documentation with it, handouts along with guided questions. My big one right now is called Anger Games, about how not to get sucked into the narcissist's anger, along with This Is Me, about having those boundaries, Free to Be, Ready, Set, Connect. In addition, and there are links below for those. On my website, we have access to my webinars, my articles, my podcasts, books, etc. So plenty of resources there. And I do hope that you avail yourself to those things. Again, it's so insidious that any human being would say, it's my task to get inside your head and take over your life. And my answer is, no, it's not your task. I'm hoping instead that you can decide, I'm going to choose from the inside out who I want to be and what I believe is wisest and best. And in doing so, you dedicate yourself to being a lifelong learner. And as you do, you can have more and more assurance that it truly is possible for you to become a person of peace. I so want you to have peace.